Greetings, Internet. Today I'm going to do something a little different, and rather than kind of making something, I'm going to show you something I finished making, just because it's kind of unique and I want to show it off. So this is the Deathwing Dark Angels army I did up for Battle for Salvation. So I thought I'd go into telling you guys how I made this little army. So hopefully this isn't too shaky. So first things first, this is all Terminators. This is 37 Terminators in the list and 2 Dreadnoughts. I've gone and used Contemptor Dreadnoughts to count as basically Rifleman Dreadnoughts, 2 twin-linked autocannons. So one of the things that makes this base unique, or display board unique, is... Oh my god, it's floating! Sorry, I get a little excited. Focus. So yes, so I've made this display board to kind of thematically fit the Dark Angels. If you guys know their fluff, they're basically, their planet was destroyed, and they're on a giant rock floating through space. So this is the idea that inspired this little guy. So if we start at the bottom, basically what we'll see is an umbrella stand. Nothing too fancy. It was about 30 bucks on Amazon. I wanted to get something that was kind of ornate. This guy's actually really heavy. It's probably close to 20 pounds. So this thing is real sturdy. Like, it takes some effort to lift. Yeah, see, I can't even lift it with one arm straight out, which is good. So you don't have to worry about it floating away. Like, then we've got 1 1/4 inch acrylic rod. Picked that up on I think Amazon, maybe eBay, but if you do a search for that sort of thing, you can find it. So those things are pretty straightforward. So if we start looking at the base here, basically what I've done is you can see the different levels of like insulation foam. So I just used a hot knife, and you can use a wire cutter and basically just cut out, if we spin around, just a bunch of shapes and kind of stacked them up. So it kind of tapers off and then gets a little bigger. So then I just glued these pieces together, and we base coated the whole thing and dry brushed it. So same way you do almost any like tabletop terrain, just on a bigger scale, and then inverted. So then the next thing I did was for the bases of these guys. You've probably seen similar things. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but we basically just took like foam board and kind of laid out a pattern for these guys. Cut holes in it for them to fit, and then there they go. So they're kind of all inset, so it kind of, you know, looks pretty sweet. Looks like they're actually part of the base as opposed to just standing on it. So for this little section here, this is just 3 or 4 levels of foam board stacked on top of each other. And then on this one in the back, it's 1 more layer of that pink insulation foam. I believe it's 2 inch thick. Anyway, and then another piece of foam board on top of it. To fill in like all the gaps and things like that. So there's little gaps between the edge of the foam board and then the foam, filling in all these little gaps between the layers of foam board to make it kind of look like rock. You can use joint compound, which if you do, as it dries, it kind of shrinks, so it gives you these cool little cracks. The other thing you can use, and it's kind of hard to tell where I use foam board, joint compound, or this stuff called flex paste. But flex paste is much like joint compound, but it dries kind of like a rubbery texture and doesn't really shrink all that much. So you can see in these sections, it looks a little more organic, kind of like it went on wet. Another thing that I did before I put all of this stuff on, I coated the whole thing in a thin layer of PVA or Elmer's glue. You could pick up gallon jugs of that stuff on like Amazon pretty cheap. Focus! Okay. So, onto the texture. This is just a piece of bark, tree bark. So if you live near a tree, you can probably pry some of this stuff off, and yeah, you just paint it, dry brush it, you're good to go. The sand and everything, I've got a somewhat unique way of doing sand. I don't see a lot of people talk about this. But when you glue sand to a base, you know, all of a sudden you get little bits of sand and stuff that peel off. So what I do is I mix glue and water and sand all together. So I basically make a paste with my sand, and it doesn't peel off. So like this isn't going anywhere. Right, that sand is staying. None of this sand will shake off. So you don't have to worry about getting little bits of sand everywhere you go. These little pillars are actually from wine corks, and they're just dremeled to look like you know, pillars. So wine corks are really great for that sort of thing. And then on top of them, I did you guys, if you've seen the Deathwing command kit, it's my dog walking around. Ryder, say hi. Oh, hi. Okay, back to the video. These guys are just a little, what they call the Watchers in the Dark, and rather than paint them to look like models, I just painted them to look like little statues on top. And then to complete the effect, we just used some like little mossy stuff you can pick up at a terrain store, like a railroad store, HobbyTim, something like that. That's where I get mine. And it gives you kind of a cool little effect. So you just kind of glue that stuff on. Then for the bushes, used clump foliage. Again, Woodland Scenics make some great clump foliage to make all these little bushes and kind of add some. You don't want to just have one type of grass or terrain. It starts to look repetitive. So we put a little moss on there. This is just GW flock, nothing crazy. And then lastly, these little tufts of grass are actually, I just went to Home Depot, picked up a really cheap brush, and cut off little chunks of bristles. So that it looked like kind of grass growing, something kind of fun, something unique. So, and then lastly, some of the big chunks of terrain in the back. You can get this stuff in bags. Again, Woodland Scenics makes some of this stuff, and it's got a cool little. Let's another thing this guy can spin, so it spins around. So it just kind of looks like moss growing up or ivy growing up the side of the rocks. The other thing I did is I wanted to have a big building in there. But I wanted to be able to use it for terrain, so this actually comes out. So now I've got a fun little terrain piece I can put on the table. And I paint underneath all these just so you don't see that pink insulation foam. So put that back in there. Cool. So we did a little bit of OSL. That's just airbrush. I'll do a video on that at some point, but just to kind of make it, kind of bring the whole thing together so when you step back at it, it looks pretty sweet. So anyway, that's the floating rock display board. This particular guy, this is Belial, or my Belial concept. It's not the actual Belial model, but I don't like the way he's done. We did some cool non-metallic metal for his sword here, and he actually won the best painted model at Battle for Salvation. So won me some nice little prizes. So it's a little hard to tell, but he's got a lot of layers, a lot of work. So he's got a little gem on the end of his gun. There's actually 5 layers to each feather on his little headdress there. We can see all the layers even in like the little detail on his knee pads and on his on his robes here, on his hood. I've even painted in a little camera on the top of him there. So lots of little highlights on each little ridge on his sword there. The other guy that's kind of a favorite is, and this was a pretty easy effect, but this was just with the airbrush, is this bad boy right here. So I took the the top of the staff of the Island of Blood Fantasy Starter Kit. There's a little Skaven guy who's got this little sensor thing on the end of his little back banner. So we switched that in for a Deathwing Knight, and let's pick him up so we can really get the full effect. So we just painted it, and when painting fire, you dry brush with darker colors instead of lighter, so I painted it all white, washed it with a light blue, dry brush with blue, then dry brush with black. And then you just kind of hit it with an airbrush from this angle, and it makes it look like he's holding a glowing stick. Cool. And then lastly, maybe we'll show off this guy, because he's another favorite that a lot of people like. So this is a Contemptor Dreadnought kicking over a pillar. And he's super modular, just in case I wanted to pull off the arms. Whoops. So the arms pull off here. And even the guns themselves, it's magnetized. So just a little rare earth magnet. And just sticks in there. So I can make him doing whatever. And in fact, the top half is magnetized as well. So we can turn him around if we need to, or just pull the top off if I want to make him like basically a wreck if he gets destroyed. So the battle damage, while looking really cool, is a really easy effect just with sponging. I guess that's another video I'll have to do. And I just broke some of this grass. We can fix that later. But when you do this grass, just drop a little bit of super glue on the bottom before you stick it on the base. That way it kind of hardens and sticks together and doesn't all fall apart. So, oh yeah, all the bases on these guys are named. So everybody has a name. So this librarian, for example, I figured I can't be Belial since he's Belial, but I would be the librarian. So if you look on the back, it's got my name. I probably should have wrote HobbyTim on it, huh? But anyway. Okay, so that just about does it. Any thoughts, comments, or questions you guys have, please drop them below, and look forward to sharing the next video with you. All right, guys, take it easy.